Hi there, it's Ingrid. Today we're going to create a fun project using faux bleaching and doing some watercoloring with Brusho crystals. I have the stamp set Birthday Butterfly and the coordinating dies here. We're also going to use the Whimsical Friends for our greeting because I wanted the hello greeting. I have some distress ink. I just need any type of ink really. It doesn't really matter what you have. I'm just going to ink up my butterfly. We're going to create some masks, and I'm going to end up running this through the Big Shot, and I'm using a piece of copy paper here. So I'm just going to stamp my butterfly. And you can actually either run it through the Big Shot with the coordinating die and then trim it down, or you can cut it by hand. But I thought I'd give myself a nice little head start just by trimming it down this way here. Now, before I move on and peel these apart, I'm going to actually just kind of trim them down. I've got them held together, and I want to get as close to my image as possible. And the reason I cut these out using the die was just to kind of give myself a head start. It just makes it a little bit easier. We'll just cut it right on the line. And by cutting right on the line, what this is going to help me when I go to put my masks down, when I'm going to stamp them, it will help me in the sense that I won't have any of that excess white that you see like right here. That happens when you stamp something and then you stamp another image over it. So you can see it's really quick, but by having that already kind of pre-cut, it makes it that much faster. And why not do multiples at once? Just going to add a little bit of two-way glue to the backside to turn these into masks, and I'm all set. My goal is to have the different butterflies look like they're kind of flying towards the edge here. So we'll have them overlap a little bit like so. And I'm just going to kind of play with my design here. And so we'll kind of have different ones like this. Now I'm going to start off with one true image and the rest are going to be masked behind. So now that I have my masks, I'm going to go ahead and stamp my butterfly several times, as well as emboss it in clear. I'm going to use Versamark, which is a watermark ink pad, and we're just going to start off with one down here, and then all our butterflies are going to be masked behind it. Actually, I think I'm going to start with the center butterfly. I did forget to do a little de-staticking on my piece of watercolor paper, so I may need to, yep, I'm right here. I've got a lot of excess, which I don't need, so we'll just kind of whenever working with, especially watercolor paper, because it just grabs onto all those oils and everything, you always want to use a de-static tool, and I'll do that for each other butterfly and just heat set that. Now I don't need to usually worry about paper warping with this, only because the final technique is going to involve an iron. So we're going to iron our piece, and that will end up flattening everything out. Now by accident I grabbed the white embossing powder, which is fine, it doesn't really matter. And I have one of my masks, which you can see that I've already used, and we're just going to cover up our butterfly the best we can. And you may sometimes just get a little bit of the excess white, and that's okay. I'm gonna make sure to use my de-static tool here. You don't want any excess embossing powder getting stuck. And we're going to stamp our remaining butterflies. I'm going to have one on the top and one on the bottom. Now I wanted a really bright and vibrant background, so we have our 5 butterflies here. One was in white and the other 4 were clear. It's supposed to be all clear. It doesn't really matter which one you use. We're going to take some Brusho. I have some turquoise, some lemon, and some vermilion. Vermilion's kind of a reddish orange. So we're going to start off with the lemon. And the paper towel is really just to kind of absorb everything, because when I work with Brusho, it kind of runs all over the place. So I'm just going to start off with lemon pretty much in the center, and then we'll spritz this just to kind of get that nice bright yellow background working. I also have a Pentel Aqua Pen, and I picked yellow in the center because that'll work with either color to turn things into something cool. We're going to take a little bit of the yellow away from the top because I really want that to be a little bit more of the turquoise. And now we'll add some of the blue, the turquoise up top. Now when I spritz this, I don't really want to spray them this way. You can see some of them got down here anyway. I'm just going to kind of have them go the other direction. Just really want to kind of blend all that together. I'm not worried so much about this side. We're going to cut this side off, but I want to get all this nice bright color here in these little grooves of our butterfly. You can always introduce a drier paper towel into your area if it's getting a little kind of out of control, to remove some of that water. And don't ever worry about something that's not looking right initially, because we're going to come back into it. So we can always add some powder and come back over it, especially with this. It doesn't necessarily have to be a spritzer, but it can be. Spritzing gives you a lot of water. And then down here, we're going to now add some of the vermilion. See if we can keep some of these orange, kind of orange reddish dots from going the other direction. I do want to have a little bit more orange in these butterflies. Now I have a lot of the turquoise in my brush, so I kind of need that to clear out. I'll grab a second water brush, which will just quickly spritz to get it wet, and just kind of so that I can move some of this vermilion around. I have a little too much water going on, so we're just going to remove some, especially from the sides. I want to have a little more control, so I'm just dabbing it so that I can gain control back of my project. Now I really don't like these little stripes up here, and I kind of did that when I went a little too hard with my nylon bristles, so let's add a little more turquoise here. And you can see these little crystals kind of went everywhere, so we're just going to kind of keep it to this area. Kind of moving it along here. Now you can see I have a drier area, and that's why the water, it's kind of got a barrier so it's not going anywhere, which can be good in the respect that we're trying to control it, but bad in the respect that I don't want to have a harsh line. So next up, I'm going to add some more lemon, kind of in this area, a little more water to kind of get that moving. And blue and yellow kind of create green, so I may get some green over here on the side, and that's okay. I don't mind that. I do want to get rid of all that water there at the edge. There we go. A little more control. And see how we're kind of brightening this area up? And that's really kind of the purpose there. And then we'll add a little more vermilion here. I really want to keep those from going the other space. So add a little more water here and kind of move that around. Just want to brighten this up. And I love how this blends with the yellow. Now that I have some water, I can really just kind of use my brush here, and that's going to give me a much more potent look. Now I'm really going for something artsy here, so I'm just going to kind of drop in a little. More lemon here. I'm going to come back in with my watercolor brush, I'm going to kind of clean it off a little bit. I'm spritzing only because I forgot to get a water jug. Let's take that away because I don't want it to be too crazy. Let's add a little bit of the lemon to this butterfly. There we go. Now we have a little bit more of a brighter orange. See, here we have more of the vermilion color, and then here, let me zoom in here. You can see by adding the yellow, it really took it to a different level. It's kind of blending those colors. So I have kind of 5 different looks here. I have the true turquoise up here. I've got the turquoise and yellow blending here, giving me a little bit of green, more of the lemon yellow here, just a little bit of that red, and just a little bit of the green up here. That true blend over on this side, and then down here the real vermilion, which is kind of like a little more on the red side, but it does have some orange in it as well. Giving this a little bit more of a lemon look so that we have that really pretty blend. And I'm going to come back in with the lemon here. Just want to blend this a little bit more. A little more potent color. There we go. That's got a little bit more of a natural feel to it for me. Now that I have the look that I want down here at the bottom, it really has that nice painted look. I want to work a little bit up here. So I'm going to take some of this turquoise and we're going to really, first off, keep it from going other places. I just want it to be here. So I've got this really wet brush that I've cleaned off. We're just going to kind of activate these crystals here, just making this much darker and a little more intense. There we go. I want this to kind of have the same feel and be a little bit more organic. A little more yellow here. Now I don't really need to worry about this part, like I said, because we're going to end up cutting that off, but I really love how these kind of blended together. I think I want to bring this to a little bit more of a more vibrant place because these are really vibrant, those 4, and this one's kind of fallen a little flat. Now you can very easily overdo this, so I'm going to kind of move this over, and we're going to take some of the lemon yellow right there, and we'll take a little bit of the turquoise there, and we'll spritz them so that I have something to work with. I'm going to pull from the lemon first and just really kind of punch this up a little. Just really doing the butterfly. You can see how these kind of overlapped, which is fine. And then we'll pull some of this turquoise, especially right here where it connects. Just a little tiny bit here. And there we go. That kind of is a little bit more on an equal footing as the rest. So now we need to fully dry this. So I'm going to take a heat tool to it and then we're going to fussy cut all this out and before moving on. Now my piece is for the most part dry, and to move on, we're going to do a little bit of faux bleaching, and that's a technique where you're removing something. Bleaching in essence is the removal of something. So I'm going to take kind of a clean part to here. I'm just going to give it a really light spritz with my mini mister. I don't want it to be really wet. I just need it ever so slightly damp, and I'm just going to go over my embossed images here, and my goal is really to remove some of that Brusho that's sitting on top of the embossing powder. Now, when you heat your embossing powder, sometimes you can get some of that Brusho because it is kind of a watercolor piece kind of stuck on there. Don't worry about it too much. Because this is watercolor, I want this to feel, like I said earlier, organic. You can see I removed a lot of the color. I'm trying not to remove too much of the color on the inside. But what happens here, and you can see I had a little bit of powder there, so we'll try and touch that up. What happens is if you have any pigment left behind, when we heat this up next, it's going to actually soak through it, and we're not going to have as crisp an image. But because this is watercolor, I'm okay with that. But I really love how this edge looks. This is really beautiful. It's very colorful. It's almost as if all this color just kind of collided and blended together to create this like real wow impact. Now, faux bleaching is going to be the removal of the embossing powder. So I'm taking out an old phone book, and I'm just going to have a couple of pages sitting on top. I have a regular iron. This is one that I bought. It's a cheap iron. I think I spent about 10 bucks just wanting to have something that I could use for techniques like this. And you can use a craft iron, will work a little bit quicker than this. And we're just going to iron our image here. And what that's going to do is it's going to remelt that powder, and the powder is going to transfer to whatever surface is on top of it when it's hot. Just like when you touch your hot powder and it transfers to your fingers and you get a little imprint, it'll stick to anything that it comes into contact with. So in this case, the paper. So we're going to remove it from our project, leaving behind the preserved white color of the watercolor paper. So you can see how that is starting to transfer. We still have quite a bit that needs to come up. We'll just go over this again here. Now, if it sticks to your project at all, and this is interesting, right here we used white, if you remember, rather than clear. I usually do this with clear rather than white because the clear really preserves the paper. The white kind of leaves a little bit of the white behind. So let's see if we can't remove all of it here. If it sticks to the paper at all, you just need to give it another blast with the iron. This will only take a couple, 30-40 seconds to a couple minutes at the most. You don't want to overdo it. And if you see any shine kind of left, see if we can't focus in here. See how that shines a little bit? We still have embossing powder on there. So we're just going to do this a little bit more until all that shine is gone. So here's our project, and you can see that we have all that preserved white from the watercolor paper just kind of shining through, and it's kind of like an off-white. So now I'm just going to take a pair of scissors or a craft knife, and we're going to fussy cut just this edge off. Now for a greeting, I'm going to use something that's quite a contrast down here, and that's going to be black embossing powder. I have the Hello from the Whimsical Friends. We're just going to stamp that in VersaFine black onyx ink. I find that watercolor paper sometimes will absorb whatever it is that you're using. So although dye-based ink soaks in and pigment ink will sit on the surface, it is watercolor paper, so I never leave this to chance. And I'm just going to add this in the bottom left corner here. Just want that stamped really well. Definitely need the de-static tool, and then we're just gonna take some of the black glint embossing powder. Actually, I think I'm gonna take the superfine black embossing powder by Wow. Now, Wow powders have anti-static in the actual containers, so you don't want to remove the powders out of the containers and into something else. So double anti-static can only help get that heat set. Now, to complete our card, I have a black card base, and I'm just gonna glue my piece to my black. You can always just use a card front and attach that to a white card base if you want. But I'm just gonna add a white panel on the inside. And that's gonna be your finished card. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about Brusho, as well as how to do some different techniques. We did some watercoloring, we did a little bit of faux bleaching. We have all sorts of stuff going on. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and definitely subscribe to our channel. We have new videos every week, and we'd love to see you again. Thanks so much for joining me. Till next time, bye-bye.